Hello, my name is Eric, a member of the Teenage Advisory Board of the Howard County Library System, and today in this video I'll be talking about static methods in Java. So what are static methods? In Java there's actually two types of methods. First is a static method, the other is an instance, which we'll be talking about in another video later on. Static methods in Java belong to the class and not the object. So you make sure you keep that in mind because that's very important. And to use a static method, you actually have to call the method. To call the method, you would use the following syntax. In orange is the name of the method, and then in red is the parentheses, and then you want to put a semicolon after that. And depending on the method you created, like it might take in a parameter, and if it does, you want to type that in the parentheses as well, which is in green here. So why do we use static methods? Well, it acts as a helper method since they don't require any object state. And static methods also eliminate the need for the caller to instantiate the object just to call the method, since static methods don't need an instance variable to run. And it allows reuse of code without having to retype it. So one of the most basic and most fundamental static method is the Java main method. And you've probably seen this in code really often but never actually understood what it means. And I'll be talking about that today. And so the main method has several parts to it. First is the public. So it's the access modifier of the main method. It actually needs to be public so that Java runtime can run this method. And then after the public, you always want to put the static. So when Java runtime is run, there is no object to the class. So it has to be static so that JVM can load the class into memory and call the main method. So JVM stands for Java Virtual Machine, and it's basically a virtual machine that allows your computer to run Java code. So after static, you want to put the return type, which in this case is always void because you never return anything with the main method. And then lastly, the main method has a parameter, and it only accepts a single argument type string array. So it would not accept any other types of arguments. Like if you have a double, it would not work. Now I'll actually be talking about how you create a static method. There are several parts to a static method. Well, first off, you always want to indicate whether or not it's public or private. So public basically allows access to it from any class, and private only allows access to it from this specific class. And then you always want to indicate static since it's a static method. And then the next thing you want to indicate is whether it's like what kind of return type it is. Like it could be an int, a double, a string, a char, a void. And then after that you want to put the name of your method, and after the name you want to put your parameters if you want any parameters. And to actually do that you would have to type the type of the variable and then the variable name. So in this case I have int L and then int W, which I'll be using to find the area. And then actually you don't, if you have multiple parameters, they don't actually have to be the same type. Like one can be int, the other can be double, or one can be string, the other can be int. So just keep that in mind. And then next I have the body. So in this case I created a variable called area, and then I took the length and the width and then multiplied them to get me the area. And then lastly you have the return type, the return statement, sorry. And the return statement actually depends on what your return type is. So if you have a return type of int, you must return like a variable that's an int or just an int. And like if you, for example, you have a double as a return type, you cannot return like an integer, like 1 or 2. Likewise, if you have like a double for a return type, you can't return an integer. And so the other return type you have is called a void. Like in the Java main method, void basically just means your method doesn't return anything, so you wouldn't need a return statement if your return type was void. So now we'll go on to Replit, and I'll show you guys a few examples. So now that we're on Replit, I'll show you guys a few examples with this. So first I created a method called a find area of rectangle, which has a return type of int, and it takes in two parameters, the length and the width. And inside of this I create another variable called area, and I set that equal to the length times the width. And then since this is a return type of int, I have to return another int, and I return area in this case, and it's an int, so it would work. And to actually run this, I would have to type it out in the main method, but since this is only returning, it won't actually print anything if I just type out find area of rectangle parentheses. So I actually have to do system.out.print, and inside that I do this. So that'll actually print the area here. So actually with this thing, you could, if you want, you could create another variable in the main method and set that equal to this. That's something you can do. Yeah, it prints 66, which is what 6 times 11 is. And so I'll show you guys another example. So here I created another method. This time it's a void, and it takes in two doubles in the parameters. And then here in the main method I give it two parameters. So I give it two parameters, 20.5 and 1.4. And in this void method, you can see there is no return. So it basically just prints out what L times W is. And then if I run it, give it 1 second, we'll see that it equals 28.7. So yeah, that's basically it for static methods. It's not really too hard of a concept to understand, but it's very important because you'll probably use it very often when you code. So make sure you get a firm understanding of it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.